Welcome back to the Fairways of Life show. That is our guest coming up, Craig Stadler. Cannot wait to get into it with Craig and talk about his career, talk about really everything they accomplished. I want to start right back to his U.S. Amateur Championship and more. He won the 1982 Masters. Wait till you hear this history. Just settle back for a second. 30 professional wins. 13 of those were on the PGA Tour. 9 on the PGA Tour champions. 2 senior majors as well. The 03 senior players. The 04 tradition. He was a 2-time United States Ryder Cup player in 1983 and in 1985. He won that 1973 U.S. Amateur. Get this. You ready? How's your back feeling, folks? 652 PGA Tour starts, 97 major championship starts, 263 PGA Tour champion starts. All told, total tour starts, ready for it, 915. Career top 10s, 196. That is 21% of the time. Let that sink in for a second. Remarkable. Career top 5s, 107. That's 12% of the time. Runner-ups, 28 times. From 1980 to 1985, Craig had one of the best stretches in golf history. In 150 starts, he had 8 wins, including that Masters, 10 runner-up finishes, 7 third-place finishes, and 53 top 10 finishes. This means that Craig finished in the top 10 on average every 3 events for 6 straight years. He won the BC Open, you remember, back in 2003. Became the first player over the age of 50 to win a PGA Tour event in 28 years, and the first player ever to win on the PGA Tour after having won on the PGA Tour champions. He won that 1973 U.S. Amateur, beating David Strawn 6-5 at Inverness Club in Toledo, Ohio. That was when they returned to a traditional match play format for his victory. That was after an 8-year stretch where it was stroke play. Delighted to welcome Craig to the show and find out how he's doing, how life is going. How are you, my friend? I'm
doing good, Matt. How are you?
Good. How much does it make your back tighten up hearing about all those starts?
Yeah, I've never heard that little spiel before. That was pretty good, pretty impressive.
How are you feeling, by the way?
For me, I don't know why, but just went day to day and went about my business and just had some pretty good runs here and there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
My gosh, how's the back right now, Craig?
I'm sorry.
How's the back now?
How's my back? My back is pretty good. I got it cleaned up in October of 23, so it's good. And along the way, I got new eyes and I got a new hip last April, and so yeah, getting everything done in 1 year.
1973, when you won that U.S. Amateur at Inverness, I'm just curious about how you look back on those memories and that particular week and on Inverness as well.
You know, it was an amazing week for sure, obviously, but I distinctly remember that Jack Bell came from Hazeltine and out to be the club pro at La Jolla. He was there about a year, maybe about 2 years, maybe 3, but he called me like the day before I was leaving and said, "I want you to come for breakfast at the club." I said, "Sure." So I went up there and sat down with him. He says, "I'm just going to tell you one thing, and you're probably not going to like what I'm going to tell you, but you're going to see a lot of people that you probably know or will meet or will become friends with when you get back there, but you're playing match play. It's a completely different mantra than stroke play." And I said, "I know, we kind of fool around with that when you go out and play with buddies, whatever, but he said, I'm just going to tell you this. Every time you step on the first tee, every day you go out, no matter who you're playing, could be your best friend, could be somebody you never met, all you want to do, the only thing you want to keep in mind is to kick their ass as bad as you can. Once you're done with the day, you can go have a beer, you can have whatever, and make pen with your friends and buddies, but you're not doing anybody any favors while you're out there." I kind of stuck with it because I had a great weekend, which was amazing. I never really played much. I played the Porter Cup a couple times, maybe once, the Western Amateur maybe once, but that was about it. I didn't travel a whole lot from the West Coast. But I got Sidoroff on Saturday morning, who was the current British amateur champion, and I got Vinnie Giles that afternoon, who was the defending amateur champion. So pretty good bookends for Saturday, and I fortunately, I didn't. The one thing I take out of the whole week is I didn't hit the ball that great, but I made everything, especially on Inverness, which, greens are small, they're very undulated, and you normally don't have a good putting experience around Inverness when you go there for tournaments. But and I just made everything every day and kind of demoralized everybody I was playing.
You were still at USC when you won that U.S. Amateur. Maybe it's just a reflection of how times are different now. Did you ever consider turning pro early, or was it always your intention, I'm going to finish school?
No, I did. I did before my senior year. That was like just before my junior year when I won the amateur.
Yep.
And I didn't have a great third year at school, golf wise. I was okay, but I didn't win much. And that next fall was getting ready to go back to school, and I'm sitting there, one Monday morning. I opened up the paper, and I'm like, God, this guy just made $16,000 for winning a golf tournament. I think I can beat some of these guys. And I just decided, you know what? Nah, I enjoyed going to school. I enjoyed all my buddies at school at SC and whatever. So I decided to go back and do my final year, which was fine. But look back then, like, my God, you can make 16 grand for winning a PGA Tour event. A little different these days, obviously. But it was kind of luring at some point in time. But I just decided, when I committed to 4 years, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I enjoyed every bit of it, though.
You know what's incredible about your career, Craig, is that your career is like a bridge in time. Because when you came out onto the PGA Tour, many of the all-time greats of the game were not only still playing, they were still winning, and they were some would argue in their prime, depending on who we were pointing to in this
Sure.
regard. Even at Inverness, I mean, the history at Inverness. Do you remember? You probably don't, but I'm going to ask you it anyway. Do you remember seeing the grandfather clock at Inverness in the foyer?
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah,
grandfather
just
clock,
to-
folks. Go ahead, Craig. Yeah, you know what?
I say just to walk through the clubhouse there is amazing. It begins to rival Augusta, I guess, but obviously not quite. But it's not far off. Pretty impressive.
Well, that grandfather clock that you're seeing in that photo and what Craig is talking about walking through the clubhouse, this one's in the foyer, was bought by players from the 1920 U.S. Open. Now, that U.S. Open was won by England's Ted Ray. But Walter Hagen is reported to have had the players get together, and they put a little money together, and they bought this grandfather clock to thank Inverness for hosting the U.S. Open, because distinctively, think about this for a second, it was the first club that allowed the players to come into their clubhouse, to actually use the locker room, get out of the rain, not have to change their shoes in the trunk of their car. And there's a plate on that grandfather clock that reads, God measures men by what they are, not by what they in wealth possess. This vibrant message chimes afar, the voice of Inverness. That's the kind of history that the man who is with us continues to touch. He turns professional and comes out on the PGA Tour. Think about the names who were playing in the middle 1970s and what it has meant. It's a time that I like to say when giants roamed. So, Craig, I'm interested. Who were your childhood golfing heroes, and were you, as we just described, all of a sudden thrust into a scenario where you were playing alongside of them and you had to take that advice of nobody's your friend when you're competing, you can be a friend later on?
Yeah, I was always enamored by Palmer. I love the way he played. I love his, no laying up, no playing to the safe side very often with second shots. But I totally wanted to emulate his game and just absolutely love the guy. And fortunately, after I won the amateur in '73, the winner got 2 years in Augusta, so I played in '74 and '5. And in '74, I got paired the first day with Nicholas, which was a little nerve wracking. I walked on the tee and on the first hole on Thursday, and he was at the table, and I walked over to the table. Just as I got there, he turned around, and I introduced myself. He goes, "I know who you are." Like, this guy knows who I am? No way. And as you well know, protocol at the Masters champion tees off first, no matter what order it is for the scores on the first tee. And so he teed off, I teed off, and we did that same rotation 18 straight holes. I never cut him a shot on. I never cut him a hole. But that was pretty special. And then the next year on Thursday, I got paired with Palmer the first round. So and we all became great friends. And then reality kind of hit a couple years later, which I was actually on tour, and the first few years weren't too fun. And I played. They had tour schools back then, so I went through Myrtle Beach in June, and we got to start. The first event we could play in was Milwaukee, which that was kind of a rude awakening. I drove all the way from San Diego back to Milwaukee in my little Camaro, and got there on Monday and discovered that we're playing 128 people for 5 spots, and actually made it, and then missed the cut, so I had to keep qualifying. And long story short, I played the whole summer, made $2,100, and just kind of took November, December to sit back and think about, is this what I really want to do? And my dad was helping fund the bill a little bit, and I think that 2 months off to just look back and see how difficult this really is, how much more difficult it was than I ever dreamed it would be, and just kind of worked a little harder. And fortunately, I finished 4th the first week out at Pebble, and got pretty close to my 12.5 that I had to make for the year to keep my card. And then that was kind of the deciding factor. I just figured if I can't make 2,500 the rest of the year, then I'm done. And fortunately, things just went better, and I got a little more consistent. And once the 80s hit, I had a few good years, and then had a drought for 7-8 years. But then kind of came back a little strong in my 40s, and just played a long time, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, I would think, if memory serves me, back in the days that you're talking about, that I suspect you had a number of nights sleeping in that Camaro too. I believe the exempt list was 60.
Yes.
Right. So it was even tighter when you think about it's going to 100 next year on the PGA Tour. It was only 60 max back in the day then. As I mentioned, our guest is Craig Stadler. Craig, did you ever get a chance to meet the great man?
I never did. I dropped off a few things at the office with Doxy to have him sign, and picked him up, and never met him, unfortunately.
He's amazing. We had your man Lanny Watkins on a couple weeks ago, and did a slow motion of Ben Hogan's swing, and it was the first time that I can remember someone of your and his stature breaking down the golf swing of Ben Hogan, putting the lines, and here he is, and this is the plane. It was absolutely incredible. All right, so cast our minds back now. Hard to believe, 43 years ago, 1982. If I remember correctly, my friend, 1982, while in retrospect, when we look back on it, was an amazing year for you. You won, 4 times that year, including that Masters. But as I recall, wasn't that a pretty tough year for you personally in terms of where your emotions were at, and then somehow you channeled it into all this great golf?
Somewhat. Augusta played a big part of that, actually. Once I got done on Sunday and went into the press room, what's his name? Used to write the front page sports line for the LA Times, Jim Murray.
Yeah, Jim. Yes.
But he wrote a column the next day on the Masters and blah, blah, blah. And the first 2 paragraphs were basically about my temper and how I didn't really, was unhappy all the time and get pissed off all the time and whatever. And then, 2 paragraphs down later, it said he also won the Masters yesterday. And that kind of, that hit home pretty good. Because my first 4 or 5 years, I won't beat around the bush. I was my own worst enemy, no doubt about it, and probably why I had such a horrible first 3 years. And then, I had Had Kevin in 80, and that made a little bit of difference having a kid out. Absolutely. But yeah, I just kind of figured out. I finally, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, I guess. So I kind of, after after 3 years, figured, every time you three putt, you bogey 2 or 3 of the next holes, and just need to get over it and whatever. But things got a lot better. My attitude got better, and just I started, instead of playing at the game, I started enjoying the game, I guess you could say, more than anything.
How brutal were the weather conditions on Thursday and Friday at that 1982 Masters?
Thursday was horrid. I mean, it was probably about 10 years ago on Saturday that it was like 45 degrees. It was blowing like 25 miles an hour. I'm not sure when it was, maybe 2011 or 12 or 13 maybe. But it wasn't blowing that hard, but raining and cold, and it was miserable. And I just hung in there, and I was pretty happy shooting 75. I don't know where I stood really, but on Friday, I think I must have a decent draw on Friday, because I shot 67, I think, on Friday, and 69, but on Saturday. But you look at the stats of that year, and one of them that horridly stands out is my bookends. I shot 40 my opening 9 on Thursday and 40 my closing 9 on Sunday. So that, and the fact I played the par fives, I think 2 or 3 over for the week. So it was it was a lot of good things, a lot of horrible things mixed in 4 days. But fortunately, got it done in the end somehow, and off we go.
To the point where Craig was just asking where he was after that opening round, and this goes to my point about a time when Giants roam. After that opening round, Jack Nicklaus was leading the way, 1 under after 69. Tied for second, Jack Renner and Fuzzy Zeller. Tied for fourth included Seve Ballesteros, David Graham, Greg Norman, Peter Oosterhuis. Tied for 10th with a 74, 2 over. Ben Crenshaw, Raymond Floyd, Gary Player, Jerry Pate, Curtis Strange was in there. And so, as you just heard from Craig, he was a 75 after that opening round. Your middle rounds that you were just alluding, because you were talking about the bookends, your middle rounds, though, were exceptional. What happened in 1982? And I know there's the story of you and Ben Bussey, that the fact that you were able to get a caddy that you kind of followed the lead. Could you take us down the road of how that all played out?
Be honest with you, I remember I had Bussey caddying for me, and he was one of the best green readers I've ever seen. And that was the last year you had to take the club caddies, but I'd use him the next year. And we were in the last group on Sunday in '83, so obviously we got along well and we worked together well. But he couldn't help me 3-putt a couple times coming in on Sunday.
Yeah, after that second round, Craig Stadler had established himself atop the leaderboard. So 75 in the opening round, a 69 in the second. Got him back to level par, shared that position with Curtis Strange and Tom Kite. I mean, the names are unbelievable. Tom Kite was 1 shot back in third, but then fourth place again. Ballesteros, Floyd, Nicklaus, and Watson. Are you kidding me? This is the leaderboards of that Masters. So now you're through 36. You're shared atop this leaderboard. Do you remember your emotions going into the weekend and where your head was at?
Not really. I was very happy with the round on Friday, and just went out and just try to do it again. And fortunately, I had a really good Saturday and a really good opening 9 Sunday, and then I just probably had. And it's funny because I've told the story a million times, but the 40 I shot on the back 9 is probably the best ball striking 40 I've ever had in my life. I just 3-putted on 3-putted 14 and 18, unfortunately, but it was certainly interesting. I made 3 bombs on Saturday, 16, 17, and 18. 16 was probably 40 feet to the front right pin. 17 was like Nicklaus on 17, about the same putt. And 18, the pin was front right, and I was back on top and made it again. to just go from a pretty deadlock with 3 or 4 of us to a three-shot lead going into Saturday, and then I shot 3 in the front nine. And you know as well as I do, that's the way golf is. I don't remember a single shot I hit on the front nine, but I remember every shot I hit shooting 40 on the back nine.
That's when you had what, a 6-shot lead with 7 holes to go.
Go ahead,
And
just rub it in. Go ahead.
no, my question actually is, how did you maintain your posture? Did it feel like a swirling fray at some point? And how were you able to compose yourself so that you and Dan Pohl could go to that playoff hole at the 10th, as I recall, and which you ultimately won it there? You could take us through that if you please. But how were you able to hold your emotions and your focus in check?
You know, it seemed fairly simple, actually. I made a walked off, you said, I walked off 10 with either a 5 or 6 shot lead, and then made just a nice 25-footer 2-putt par on 11, 2-putt par on 12, or 12 I buried it in the back bunker, which was dead, so I made 4 there. But then I started missing shots by just a little. I mean, I hit a 1-iron on 13, caught the right front edge, and just trickled down the hill. Not in the water, but close enough. And then 2 really good shots on 14, 3-putted from 30 feet. And then 15, I hit driver 3 wood in back right bunker, which was perfect spot. 16, I hit a great 6-iron to that top right pin and pushed it about a hair, and it just fell into the bunker on the right, which was dead. 17, drove it perfect and was in this big gigantor divot, hit a great shot, almost holed my second shot, and then I hit driver 5-iron middle of the green on 18. So it didn't sound like 40, it didn't look like 40, but it was 40. And I think Pohl shot 30 the back nine, so he picked up 10 shots on the back nine. But you know, when I got done, I gave me my choice if I wanted to go hit balls or practice, and I said no, let's just go. So went to 10, and unfortunately he 3-putted 10 to kind of return the favor, I guess.
And that was a victory.
So just got right at it and just kept going.
You, when you won that 1982 Masters, did it change in any way your self-perception? Was this ascension exactly what you felt you were capable of, or what impact did it have?
No, not really. You know, I never really put golf first in my life. I did as a kid, obviously more than baseball or anything else. But you know, as far as golf, my golf history went, I just kind of played junior golf. I played high school golf, played college golf, played mini tours. Just enjoyed playing and just kind of working my way up the rungs of the ladder with no real goals in sight, no real goals that I had set. Went through tour school the first time, and then I played 9 holes and withdrew because I got hurt. But then in Myrtle Beach, I was tied 3rd going in and last round, and again shot 41 or something the front nine. Then came back and made it right on the nose, but just kind of kept moving forward with it. And you know, I knew I could putt pretty well. That's one thing I did do. My ball striking was not exceptional by any means, but it did get better down the road once I started working with Dick Harmon. But my putter saved my rear for many, many years in my early career. But you know, winning the Masters obviously was special, very special. But you know, it didn't change my outlook on anything. I you know, with that one and winning the Bob Hope early in the year in '80, the first one I won, it's like, well, now you know you can win, because I won a few things in my career as a kid. And whatever, just trying to take it to the next level, and it just came naturally. I didn't really put any added pressure on myself to, you know, win 3 or 4 times a year or whatever. It just kind of kept coming, and I just got, as Jack Nicklaus very infamously said, winning breeds winning, and I took that to heart. And I truly believe that the more you're up there, the more comfortable you are, and the more you get things done.
All right, our guest is Craig Stadler, absolute legend, 1982 Masters champion. As I mentioned at the start of the show, he played on 2 United States Ryder Cup teams. Craig, I'm curious where you would place your Ryder Cup experience in the breadth and width of your professional career.
I would say right up there. You know, unfortunately, I wish I would have played it more. Fortunately, when winning some of my events, it seemed like they were always in the fall before Ryder Cup year, so they didn't count as far as points. So I missed a couple pretty close ones that I thought I should have made. But anyway, no, I absolutely loved them. I had a great time, and just playing for your country was so special. Fortunately, I had a pretty good run with the 2 times that I did play. It was kind of nice to beat Wisdom at PGA National on Saturday, which I think got the point to give us at worst a tie, so we would still retain the cup. But then the bittersweet, I guess, was 2 years later at Belfry. I got him again on Sunday, so it was kind of double whammy, which I enjoyed that part of it. But I just enjoyed everything about it. It was just such a great week every year I played.
Yeah, that 1983 Ryder Cup, the stories of Lanny hitting the last shot, the wedge, and then Jack Nicklaus coming out and kissing the divot. Jack Nicklaus was your captain in 1983, and it kind of was almost full cycle to where we started this conversation, and you as an amateur at the Masters, first time played alongside of Jack Nicklaus. Now he's your captain in the Ryder Cup. It's almost head-shaking the way when you think of the arc of your career, and heroes became friends.
Absolutely, and he was amazing, by the way, in 1983. He was out there, he had water, he had shirts because it was hot and humid as can be, and running around. I mean, you saw him, you played 18 holes, you saw him probably 12, 15 times. So he didn't stop. I mean, you want something to eat, you needed whatever, he would go get it for you. And just was so into it and involved in every meeting. And then we had just kind of the opposite a little bit in Trevino. He was in 85. He just kind of let the guys play, and you make your pairings and just go play golf. But which I guess was fine. But Jack was just unbelievable when he captained that year. Unbelievable.
That 1985 Ryder Cup that you referenced at the Belfry, and the images of Sam Torrance, when he had his arms up and the V and all the rest. Could you have imagined, now looking back on it, 40 years on, could you have imagined how significant that victory by the Euros was that year? It kind of ushered in the modern Ryder Cup as we know it today.
Yeah, it did. There was certainly not the press. There was not the public, thousands and thousands of people like there is now. But the one thing that I get humored by it, and I'm sure somebody else didn't, but on the second, on alternate shot on Friday, first day, I got paired with Hal Sutton, and we parred one, and I drove down the middle on 2, and he fanned it off the right and buried it in this big, giant, high bunker on the high side of the green on the right side. And people were clapping and applauding and yelling and screaming, and he turned around and looked at me, he says, "Are they applauding for my shot?" And I said, "Yeah, they are." He's like, "Why would they do that?" I'm just thinking to myself, oh boy. And he never really got over it. We got whooped that day, and that was one of the things I remember, he'd never been a part of that. And you do, if you're young, and that year in 85, we had at least five, probably 5 or 6 rookies on the team. So it was going to be a struggle from the start, but just the Belfry was an amazing little golf course. I loved it, but they got the win, and yes, that was kind of a pretty good turning point in the history of the Ryder Cup, I would say. Absolutely.
We've got about 3 minutes left in the show here today, Craig. I wanted to ask you about those Masters dinners. How important are they to you now, 43 years on? What are some of your early memories of some of the greats that you were able to hang out with?
Well, I thoroughly remember Palmer getting up and talking about cutting the fairway on 13 that Bernhard mentioned. That was one of the there were a lot of memorable ones, but that one was special. Nick hitting the wine glass, Faldo in the back, all the way in the back, and getting up and explaining to everybody in the room the process he went through practicing to get knighted, which, okay, that was different. But, Sam all has great stories, and I guess I would, you mentioned earlier who do you want to sit next to. I'd rather sit next to the chairman every time I went as champion, for sure. But I think one of the most memorable ones was Hideki got up and spoke in English for like 8 minutes. And I don't know if he speaks much. The Japanese are, you don't know about them. They say they don't speak English, but Aoki spoke English pretty good. He said he never did. But he absolutely wrote his speech in English and memorized the whole thing. It was like 8 minutes long. He did not miss a beat. And it was so impressive. But, and again, talking about Hideki, his caddy on 18 is probably one of the most memorable moments on the golf course of something non-golf or non-shot related. So a lot of good stuff there. But yes, I love going back to the dinner. It's even more special now, I would say, because I don't see these guys other than once a year. And it's nice to get back and chat with everybody and see everybody again. So, yep, hopefully I'll make a lot more of them.
Incredible, Craig. I mean, folks, one of the things that he mentioned there is Sam. He was talking about Sam Snead and the stories that Sam Snead would say. Sam Snead was born in 1912. That's what I mean about how Craig Stadler's career has been a bridge to eras in the game of golf. And it's absolutely classic. We've got about 40 seconds left here, my friend. But if you could jump into a time machine, would you have wanted to play at any other time than when you did?
I wouldn't mind playing right now. That'd be okay. It'd be interesting. But no, I mean, we had fun, and we, for so long, I mean, we never played for more than $100,000 the first 4 years on tour. And it was friends going out and playing golf, and you make a little bit of money. I mean, I think in 78, I finally made the top 60. I finished like 45th on the money list with $43,000 maybe. So, was it fun? Yeah. Was it a lot of money you're making? No. But you know what? You worked hard for it, and especially coming out and having Mondays every week on for 3-4 spots. That got to you mentally after a while. But
classic.
Fortunate to overcome. Some do, some don't.
All right, my friend, we got to run. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your week at Augusta National.
All good, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it very much.
Absolute delight. It was an honor. See you, folks.